number 1009 from our teal hymnal, Meditation on Breathing, number 1009.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm the Reverend Cassandra Hartley, and I have the honor of serving this congregation as executive minister. I'm joined on the chancel today by the Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti, our senior minister, Stella Anderson, our acting director of spiritual growth and development, Carter Smith, our acting director of music ministries, Allison Halerz, our pianist-in-residence, and behind the scenes, Mike Halerz, our technology consultant. Later, you'll also hear from Colleen Crowley and Kathy Muha on behalf of our food justice group. It takes many hands and people to bring a Sunday morning together, but of course, our congregational life is not just limited to Sunday mornings. There are so many things going on and ways to get involved, including this afternoon. There is a board forum from 2 to 3:30 on Zoom. All are welcome, and if you'd like to register, you can go to our website, UUAA.org, and you'll find a link there for registering for the Zoom meeting. So we hope you'll join us there. If you're new to our congregation, we are so grateful for the gift of your time and presence. If you'd like to learn more about our community, you can join us for a newcomer welcome directly after the service in the Jackson Chapel, which is just past the social hall. There you'll have a chance to meet staff and other congregants, ask questions, and let us get to know you more deeply. If you're new and joining us online, we hope you'll introduce yourself in the chat so we can greet you. And we encourage you to take our newcomer survey at UUAA.org/newcomer survey so we can learn more about you and get you more deeply connected. Whether you're a newcomer or a long-timer or something in between, we are so glad that you have joined us for this time together. It's especially joyous to be able to gather again in this space, to be able to sing together again, to share coffee and donuts and conversation again, to pass the baskets again. There's so much to be grateful for and a renewed energy in the air. Of course, as we return to so many beloved activities, Our building and grounds need even more help at a time when our staff is stretched to the limit. So we're looking for volunteers for our Sunday building care team, our grounds care team, or our garden stewards team. These teams offer an opportunity to support our community in an active, hands-on way. Whether it's helping with setup on Sunday mornings, being one of the drivers of our very cool commercial riding lawnmower, weeding garden beds, or even just helping with occasional projects like painting. If you're interested, look for more information coming in the weekly news ahead. Or you can also talk to me, or if Liz Oliver is still here in social hour, you can talk to one of us as well. Certainly, we are lucky to have such a beautiful building and grounds. And as the green slowly returns to our land, it's a reminder that we are in a season of growth and change and possibility. It's not surprising then that so many cultures and religions have special celebrations at this time of year. For our Christian siblings, today is Palm Sunday and the beginning of Holy Week, which recalls the events leading up to Jesus' death and resurrection. Next Friday, our Jewish siblings will honor Passover, which commemorates the escape from slavery in Egypt, as told in the Bible. And our Muslim siblings continue to honor the month of Ramadan with prayer, fasting, and reflection. Today, we turn to yet another rich tradition, Buddhism, as we continue to explore our monthly theme of awakening. We will be honoring the work of Thich Nhat Hanh, engaging in meditation practices together, and reflecting on what it means to awaken to ourselves. So let us move deeper now into that sacred time together. We are gathered for worship.
Good morning. Each week, we, along with Unitarian Universalists all over the world, begin our time together by lighting our chalice. Our chalice is a reminder of our connections to one another in this community and our connections with the broader community of Unitarian Universalists across the globe. We light our chalice each week to remind us of the spark of love, hope, and possibility that resides within each of our hearts. I would like to invite Glenn Harris and Michelle Dunnan to come up and light our chalice this morning. And for those who are joining us on live stream this morning or at a later time, I invite you to light a chalice or a candle along with us here. Then, if you are comfortable, add a message to the live chat that you have lit your chalice. Please join with me as we say, "We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace." Thank you, Glenn and Michelle. Another way we begin our time together each week is by reciting our covenant. As Unitarian Universalists, we are not bound together by one single belief or creed. Instead, we are bound together by the promises that we make about how we will be present to one another. The spirit of these promises are captured in our community's covenant. Please join with me in saying these words together. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you.
Good morning. Today, as we explore Buddhist ideas and practices, I am delighted to share the story of a small child who receives an unexpected gift and learns a lesson about mindfulness and gratitude. The Candy Dish by Kobi Yamada, illustrated by Adelina Lirius. There once was a child who was like nothing the world had ever seen. So in this way, she was just like every other child. And one particularly memorable morning, she received an odd little object. It was a simple oval dish with a welcoming little handle that just dared her to open it. The girl lifted the lid and discovered it was a candy dish. She picked up the piece of candy, looked at it, sniffed it, touched it with the tip of her tongue, and then popped it in her mouth. It was the most marvelous thing she had ever tasted. It was like a summer day, playfully running through the sprinkler, laughing, 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 while drops of water tickled her face. She devoured it quickly and immediately wanted more. But when the girl went to lift the lid again, it wouldn't budge. She tried harder and harder still. She pulled on the handle with all her might, but it wouldn't move. She shook it. She twisted it. She tried prying it open. Still, nothing worked. She really wanted more. It was all she could think about. The girl couldn't see how lucky she was to have received the dish in the first place. Instead, she felt sorry for herself. Day turned to night, and the girl fell asleep. In the morning, she awoke, still thinking about how to get more candy. She knew she had tried everything she could think of, and yet, maybe there was something else she could do. When she went to pick up the dish, much to her surprise, the lid lifted off easily, and inside was a spectacular new piece of candy. She immediately popped it into her mouth. It was unbelievable! A new flavor like nothing she had ever tasted before. It was like joyfully rolling down a grassy hill with the wind tousling her hair and the world spinning by. And just like that, the candy was gone. She had to have more. The girl reached for the lid to get another, but again, it wouldn't open. "This is maddening. Why is this happening?" she complained. The girl was even willing to break the dish to get it open. She picked up a rock and slammed it down, but it just bounced off and rolled away. She was so upset that she hardly noticed or appreciated what she had been given. She could only think about what she didn't have. Once again, day turned to night, and the girl finally fell asleep. She woke up feeling defeated, and just seeing the dish made her even more so. She couldn't stand to look at it any longer, so she decided to get rid of it. But when she went to toss it away, as if by magic, the lid came off easily. And once again, there was a glorious new piece of candy. It was as if it was put there just for her. She picked it up and held it to the light. She noticed that simply by the way she looked at it, it seemed to sparkle and shine. She wondered if she had ever seen anything more beautiful. The girl placed the candy gently on her tongue and softly closed her eyes. Her lips curled up at the edges. The taste was indescribable. It was familiar, yet brand new. It felt like a warm, loving hug, while at the same time, she was filled with joy and excitement, much like setting off on a new adventure. This time, she wanted to make it last. She rolled it around in her mouth, delighting in the wonderful flavors and textures. She wanted to remember every bit of it. The girl wore a smile on her face, but also in her heart, grateful for this amazing gift. As she grew older, the girl came to discover that each and every morning, a new piece of candy somehow wondrously appeared in her dish, and each one was completely and deliciously unique. She realized she didn't need more. If there were more, would she appreciate each one nearly as much? Would it be as special or taste as sweet? The girl thought to herself, each day is much like this. Each day is a gift with a bit of magic. It is ours to enjoy, to taste, to experience. And because she didn't know how many candies were in that miraculous little dish, she savored each one as if it were her last. The end. Once a month, we invite congregational leaders to share their important work with the community. For this month's Social Justice Connection, I am pleased to introduce a short video featuring Colleen Crowley and Kathy Muha, who will fill us in on vital food justice initiatives taking place in our congregation.
Hi, I'm Kathy Muha and am co-chair of the food justice team along with Colleen Crowley. And good morning. First, a bit of history. For 3 years, UUAA congregations, including ours, studied ethical eating, and in 2011, an ethical eating statement of conscience was adopted nationally and here at First UU. Our congregation already had a group formed to inspire people to eat locally. The Locavores came out of our UUAA Celebrating the Planet Environmental Initiative. The Locavores joined with the team that had led the ethical eating study to form the ethical eating team. This was later renamed the Mindful Eating Team. Our mission has been to advocate for human health and animal welfare while promoting equitable food systems that sustain the environment, alleviate hunger, and support farm and food workers. This year, we've changed our name once again from the somewhat ambiguous Mindful Eating Team to the Food Justice Team. We feel the new name is much more clear about our purpose and our mission. We have been a very active and committed steering committee for these many years and have read books, done food tasting tables, had guest speakers from farmers to authors, plant-powered family potlucks, auction dinner fundraisers. We have helped at Growing Hope in Ypsilanti, toured organic farms, and much, much more. For 10 summers, we worked together on the Food Gatherers Farm Project, helping on a nearby farm where half the produce and farm stand proceeds went to feed the hungry in our community.
Thanks, Kathy. I'd like to share ways that our food justice work will dovetail with the UUAA's 2050 vision. Historically, our roots lie strongly within two of the themes identified by the congregation: climate crisis and anti-racism, anti-oppression. Our original focus on local and organic foods had environmental and sustainability origins. Food justice programs have explored food waste, CAFO factory farms, or concentrated animal feeding operations, and other issues tied to the climate crisis. Kathy mentioned our 10-year farm project that helped fight hunger among those suffering food insecurity in our community, who are disproportionately people of color. Prior to the pandemic, we hosted a panel discussion on prison gardens, and we know that incarceration is a racial justice issue. In our Social Justice Connection event last year, we featured local Black farmer Melvin Parson, whose project, We the People Opportunity Farm, employs and trains the formerly incarcerated. Last fall, our team toured Old City Acres, a regenerative farm and CSA in Belleville owned and operated by local Black farmer Alex Ball. Going forward, the Food Justice Team sees many ways for our work to overlap with that of the UUAA vision. Our racial justice goals include meeting the county's BIPOC farmers, learning about their farms, their stories, and ways in which we might be able to support their work. Volunteering at farms or with community organizations that support those who have been historically marginalized, and exploring treatment of food and farm workers. Our climate justice and environmental goals are working toward zero waste right here at UUAA, and continuing to educate our congregation and the wider community about the connection between food and sustainability.
Thanks, Colleen. Our exciting next event is called Regenerative Agriculture. What is it? How can it save the planet? And how are local farmers putting it into practice? 5 area farmers, including Alex Ball, who Colleen mentioned, of Old City Acres, will come together to discuss how they practice regenerative agriculture and why doing so is important to them and to the planet. This will take place Friday, April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. at the Ann Arbor District Library, Westgate Branch. For more information, stop by our table in the social hall after the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen and Kathy. And thank you to everyone working on food justice issues here in our congregation and in the broader community. I feel inspired every day bearing witness to our community's commitment to peace, justice, and love. One of the ways that we demonstrate our commitment each week is through the spiritual practice of our offering. It's a reminder that when each of us gives of our time, energy, money, talents, and presence, we can transform ourselves and our communities. There are many ways to give. I invite our ushers to start to pass the baskets. We welcome you to drop in cash or checks. If you'd prefer a digital option, you can text UUAA to 73256, or you can go to uuaa.org/giving. However you give, thank you for your generosity and for your commitment to building a brighter future. Will the ushers please come forward? As they do, I invite you to rise in body or spirit, wherever you may be, and say with me the words of dedication. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you.
Good morning. As the worship team was conceiving of today's service, we were holding in our hearts the broader cultural social reality of how difficult, almost impossible it has become in our wider society to be present to one another across differences of perspective or opinion, differences related to our life experience, differences of socioeconomic location within our culture, differences related to various identities that any of us may hold, and on and on and on. Often, those types of situations, conversations, intensify rapidly in their energy and can become vitriolic and harmful. We and others react in the moment in ways that don't further relationship, can cause harm. As opposed to reacting, it is also possible to respond. Respond from a fullness of time, taking time to find our grounding, reconnect with the deepest parts of ourselves, responding with compassion and love at the center of what we do and say. Recognizing this difference between reacting and responding and the cultural, very deep cultural needs that we are all present to and navigating, we're going to draw this Sunday on some of the teachings of one of my spiritual teachers, Meg Wheatley, who is in the Buddhist tradition, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. We will engage in, over the course of 3 movements, in both spiritual practice and shared reflection. And this first movement, we will draw on a practice that I've shared with our community previously, basic introductory mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness practices are a way of getting in deeper touch with our own inner reality. We do this in a certain physical way. So in just a moment, and you can start to think about this or prepare for this, we engage in physical stillness. We pay attention to our posture, comfortably doing what your body can do. It's not a slouching position, it's an active sitting position because we're bringing our full awareness to the time that we're engaged in. We notice what arises in our inner life, in our thinking, feeling, being, without dismissing it, without dismissing something that arises as irrelevant, frivolous, doesn't matter. We don't dismiss. We also don't judge that, that's a nasty thought or feeling that just arrived, or not a useful thought or feeling that just arose. We don't dismiss, we don't judge. We also don't chase the thought, feeling, whatever it is that arises in our interior life. Chasing is what our minds typically do. It's when thought A leads to thought B, to C, to D, to F, like a train going down tracks, seamlessly following one thought to another until we're all the way down somewhere we didn't even realize we were going to be. The practice in mindfulness-style meditation, the brain may chase a thought or two. But as soon as you notice it, to internally think the word thinking, I'm chasing, a series of thoughts. And as soon as you can notice it and name it internally, to then let it be, let go of it.
thinking, let it go. Release the train of thought. This is a practice of simple and full presencing and noticing, nothing more. Presencing and noticing. And the breath is a useful anchor in this practice. If we find lots of fleeting thoughts, lots of chasing thoughts, the returning to our breath with full awareness to it. I'm breathing right now. Breathing in and breathing out. I'm breathing in and breathing out. The breath can serve as an anchor, a way to bring us back to full presence as opposed to chasing thoughts. There's no one right way to do this. And in fact, often people who don't feel meditative practices agree with them or work for them will feel frustrated. That too's a thought, the frustration itself, that I'm not doing it right or it's not working. Meg Wheatley and other teachers I've worked with would say the best practice you can engage in is one that you just do. Just do it. Don't worry about whether you're doing it right or wrong. Those are judgments. Let that go. Just do it. Just do it. It's a way of being present to ourselves, and it's in that it's also a gift to an inner stillness that can help us and ground us. Would you join together with me now in a few moments of mindfulness meditation practice?
I invite you to turn to number 1031 in the Teal hymnal as we sing together verse 1 of Filled with Loving Kindness. Number 1031.
One of the challenges with mindfulness-based practices is that they can be very interior-focused and individual-centered, and in that become a limitation, in a way self-satisfying, that I'm doing deep work on myself or being present to myself in some way, shape, or form. But then what? The question could be, so what? To what end? This was an important question that Thich Nhat Hanh and others wrestled with in the 1950s. Thich Nhat Hanh's context was the Vietnam War, and he saw in Vietnam communities that were regularly engaged in mindfulness practices, and what he longed for and created was not just Buddhist communities, sanghas, that were engaged in mindfulness practices, but were using the mindfulness practices to engage more deeply in the social, political, civic realities of their time, leveraging the spiritual practice for deeper engagement in justice and social transformation. Thich Nhat Hanh was not the only one to do this. His version became known as engaged Buddhism. In parallel, around the same time, B.R. Ambedkar, an Indian leader, was born a Hindu, and in the 1950s, converted to Buddhism because he was born into what was socially and religiously sanctioned as being the lowest of the classes of Hindus, born into a status of oppression, and converted to Buddhism out of a desire for that path's greater emphasis on spiritual equality within the community, within the Sangha. There too, he wanted and yearned for a form of Buddhism that could engage socially to counteract oppression and work for justice in the world. These engaged spiritual practices invite us to notice whatever we may be doing in our own life for spiritual practice. How are we leveraging, how are we engaging with it? How is it fueling us to move more deeply in the world? That is often a challenging question, because when we deal with concrete social civic realities, they unsettle us. They unsettle us on the inside, and suddenly we're less sure. We're less sure around what we should do next, say next, be in the world next. So I'm going to make this concrete. I'm going to help metaphorically stir the interior pot a little bit. Practical, real-life situation. On March 22nd, the International Chess Federation banned Russian chess master Sergei Karyakin because he publicly supports Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So Karyakin is he's not a politician or a government official or a diplomat. He's a private citizen, perhaps one that's looked up to within his field. And at the same time, the actions that he says he supports are contributing directly to what has been described and is widely understood as profound human rights violations, war crimes, and actions that are genocidal in nature. So does Karyakin have a right to say anything he wants to say? Let me help draw some further connections. Because it's very easy in our culture to connect with something that's thousands of miles away. This is way over in Russia, Ukraine. This is happening over there, right? These questions of what constitutes free speech, what constitutes responsible free speech, are not just about thousands of miles away, a Russian chess master somewhere else. We know full well, we've experienced how our former president, Trump, used speech intentionally in ways to cause harm and division within our nation. We've experienced in our local community the same questions of what is free speech? What's okay? What's not okay? We wonder in our own community here, our UUAA community, similar questions. What are the limits of saying, thinking, doing anything at all that we wish to say, think, or do? At what point are justifiable limits and or consequences appropriate? And who gets to decide? Feel the little inner stirring I've intentionally done there for you. This is where practice meets real life. So we're going to engage now in a second movement of spiritual practice. And I want to add to that. It's going to build successively. In that first movement, we engaged in the very basic mindfulness meditation. I invite you to do that again. Same basic process. Don't dismiss thoughts, don't judge thoughts or feelings, inner realities. Also try not to follow the train. In addition to the mindfulness, add in curiosity. I have a strong feeling or reaction about something. Wonder what that's about. Is there a value at stake? Is there something I care deeply about? I wonder what that's about. Bring curiosity to your own inner life, your own inner experience. But here's the next important part. The invitation is not just to bring curiosity about your own inner reality, but to expand beyond your inner reality as well. Bring also curiosity to, I wonder who else holds these types of reactions and feelings or values that I think are very important to me. Others in my community, others in our nation, others in the world. Reflect on that. Expand beyond yourself. Bring concrete people to mind who you think may be holding similar needs, wants, feelings, concerns. Let us join together again in a shared spiritual practice. how we live individually is simultaneously always about us, about the local, and about the global. I hope the connecting of the dots is starting to be clear. These issues that we sometimes think are far away, they're not actually far away. They're deeply connected at every level, from global to national to local community to how we're moving individually ourselves, each and every one of us. So now I'm going to further stir your internal pot with a different real-life situation. Ukrainian President Zelensky has publicly said that any peace treaty with the Russian Federation needs to be adopted in a national referendum by the Ukrainian people themselves. He said this many times. Interesting. In our nation, Congress ratifies international treaties, not the populace. So Zelensky's doing something he doesn't have to do necessarily, and it's worth thinking about this. He is the highest democratically elected representative leader. It's a form of representative democracy. And the highest democratically elected representative is saying that he will draw on the tools of direct democracy for the purpose of this one thing. So notice he's not saying that the DMV in Ukraine, what their process is for issuing driver's licenses to individual people at that level, like that, we're not going to have a popular vote for how driver's licenses are issued. He's not saying zoning laws and procedures and how that all, we're not going to have a popular vote for ratifying how zoning happens. Yet this, which may and does involve, if it was to happen, if such a treaty were to occur, might involve changes to the territorial integrity of the nation that he was democratically elected to serve. So he's seeing in that a different level of responsibility that is needed, a different level of ownership, perhaps. Notice this. The distinctions between representative democracy and direct democracy. And by the way, these are just a couple. There's a whole other list. I haven't even mentioned parliamentary-style democratic processes and what those all look like. There is not one kind of democracy or democratic process. There are many different kinds of democratic process. And in our broader cultural conversations, these get conflated. And we sometimes hear discourse about democracy and crisis. Well, which democracy? Which type of process are we talking about? And by the way, if you could actually correctly, more fully identified which type of democracy we're even talking about or democratic processes we're talking about, it would be equally honest and clear to name deeply held assumptions about democratic processes and leadership-related processes. For example, feelings of deep distrust of leadership in general. Or, if in the case of us Unitarian Universalists, strongly held anti-authoritarian feelings. We pride ourselves on that, actually. What rebels we are against leadership of any kind. Well, that's going to influence how we think about democracy and any kind of democratic process. You have to name that honestly to have a discussion of what kind of democracy are we talking about? Is it in crisis? Is it not? And by the way, at every level of our nation, including even our congregational community, we have both representative democracy and direct democracy. This is about us too, not just President Zelensky far away. Are we holding feelings of distrust? Have we romanticized certain notions of democracy, viewing them as that's the purer form? Even though you look at our own country, both forms, both representative and direct, are corruptible and have been corrupted. The influence of money, the influence of PACs. With the representative form, we rely very heavily on the selflessness of the leaders we elect. And sometimes, maybe even many times, that's there. It is also not always there. Hold this important question and need of our time in mind. Hold it in your heart. Bring it alive inside you. We're now going to add to the practices. In the first movement, we talked about basic mindfulness. Then we added curiosity. Curiosity about what's arising in you. And then a curiosity moving beyond yourself. Who else? What else in the world? Who else in the world? Where else might those feelings, experiences, needs, values be? We're now going to add to the practice what in the Shambhala Buddhist tradition is called Tonglen. In other Buddhist practices, it's referred to as metta, compassion-based practices. As you move through mindfulness to curiosity, now add compassion. Bring alive love and caring in your own spirit, in your own inner life. Some for yourself, for the concerns you may be holding, for the values you hold dear. And then also send it out. Send it out for all those who may be holding similar concerns, hopes, dreams, values, anxieties, fears, whatever it may be. Those that you have brought to mind that you can clearly know and hold in your heart are holding similar concerns. Send love and compassion out to them. Let us join again in a time of shared spiritual practice. if we were engaging in a fourth movement, this Tonglen or metta style final piece of the practice could be extended even further. In fact, I would invite you in your own time at home, or if you try this on your own, to try and extend it even further. Not just love and compassion, sending that out for those who are holding similar concerns, feelings, anxieties, fears, values all around the world, but also for those who don't agree with you, who may hold a diametrically opposed need, opinion, perspective, life experience. Compassion and love for that too, for bridges, the bridges that our world needs, our culture needs, though they are not built through frustration, hostility, and vitriol. They're only built through compassion. And we have to try our level best first to bring that compassion alive in our own hearts, including for those, maybe even most especially for those that we don't agree with. It's through these kinds of meditative practices we can first deepen our own connection with ourself, what's going on within me, bring curiosity to ourselves about that too, deepen our understanding and relationship with ourselves, but then extend beyond ourselves to the world around us. Who else? I'm not alone in holding any thought or feeling that I may have. There are, in fact, others with similar needs, wants, aspirations, and hopes, extending to that, and maybe even through love and compassion, going even beyond that to include in our hearts those with very different needs than our own, for they are just as human as us, with dreams and longings as true as our own. In these forms of engagement, you go through this whole process. You don't start with a reaction, saying or doing something right away. You go through this whole form of inner engagement before you ever arrive at what you're going to do or say or try and be. The doing, saying, being is at the other side, at the other end of deep interior engagement, deep personal engagement. And it's in this way that this is not what I'm describing and what we've engaged in a bit this morning. It's not just a spiritual practice, it's spiritual discipline. It's a discipline to not react, and potentially through reacting, cause more harm, add to the aggression and violence in the world, but rather reground ourselves, bring love and caring as deeply alive as we can in our own being, for that is the energy that the world needs from us, our society and culture needs from us, intentionally through spiritual discipline, bringing ourselves to that before we engage. Allowing love to be our ground of being, the basis of our actions, the basis of what we say and do and aspire to be. May that be our best and truest calling as Unitarian Universalists.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing number 131 in the gray hymnal, Love Will Guide Us, number 131.
Beloveds, as you head out into this new week, allow the love that this community is centered in, grounded in, to awaken in you that longing to be a force of good in the broader world around us, to show up in the best way that you can, to not add to the aggression, the anxiety, the anger, the vitriol in our broader culture. We don't need more of that. And it's hard work. It's hard work not to add to that. It really is. You are held in the embrace of hundreds of people in this community that are aspiring to show up in exactly that way, the best way possible. Go forth into this new week ahead, knowing that you do that not on your own, but with the loving, moral support of an entire community behind you, cheering you on to be the best you can be. Until we meet again, go in love and peace.